Adam here from Walk the Talk Legacy. Today I get to talk one of my favourite subjects, being how to bank calories again for festivities. In this case, being good old Australia Day. Why do I talk about this side of things in relation to weekend events or festivities? I've been training for many years, and unfortunately there's always going to be events and social gatherings on quite a consistent basis, and I never like feeling like I'm going to miss out or inhibiting progress, I should say, as well. So I want the best of both worlds, and I try to do many different things: starvation, training it out of me, training the calories out of me. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. But there's two methods. Now, I want to express there can be many other ways to do it. This here that I'm going to show you is the way that I've trialed and tested. I've used for my crew as well, and passed on this information that's worked well. I also did it through Christmas and New Year's and found that I dropped 1 kilo, but there was not one day of festivities or social events that I missed out on as well. So I thought that was an absolute bonus. The whole banking calories side of things, this also comes down to people that think that right through the week is fine, and then they can binge on the weekends. That doesn't work either. I've been there and done it. It's 2 steps forward, 1 7/8 back, or 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. So being a little bit more strategic about understanding your calories. This doesn't necessarily have to apply to people who are flexible dieting or counting macros, proteins, fats and carbs, but this method is probably the most simplest way that I can explain it to you on how to prepare for Australia Day. And it's probably best telling you this now, because tomorrow, if we're using method 2, you need to put it into action. So I wanted to use me as an example because at the moment, yes, my calories are reasonably high, or very high compared to the normal person who's eating next to nothing. So what I've got on a daily basis, I eat is 280 protein, 90 fats, and a whopping 500 carbs, which is up there for me, based on the last couple of years as well. So method one works really well for people who have got high food already, and for those who are counting macros who have got quite a high food consumption. Now, obviously, mid-morning, lunchtime, depending on when you guys are prepared to start your Australia Day festivities, I like to train first thing in the morning regardless. And normally as well, I'd wake up, I'd have my pre-workout and my aminos during training, and then I'd have my post-workout meal. Some like to eat before. Again, personal preference. We won't go into that because we can be debating it for days. But I'll train, I'll have my pre-workout, my aminos, and then after training, I'll always make sure that's a reasonably normal meal. I just put, for example, 60 protein, 20 fats, 80 carbs. Let's just say a decent protein pancake, which you've probably all seen before. Where it happens now is that sort of mid-morning-ish is maybe when the barbecue starts, and lunchtime with the beers, etc. So if I take 60 protein, 20 fats and 80 carbs off my current macros, leaves me with 220 protein, 70 grams of fat and 420 grams of carbs. Okay, so going into that side of things, we've got meals 2, 3, 4 and 5. I've got a normal meal at meal 1. So how am I going to work this? Is basically, I said to myself, I want to have 12 beers. 12 beers. Again, that can be spread out over a very long period of time. It's Australia Day. I'm using it as an excuse to maximize my flexible dieting approach. So without going into things any further as well, what I do, this is the method that I do, is with a beer, let's say a Hahn Super Dry. Unfortunately, the nutritional panel will not tell you exactly what's in it, especially alcohol, sugar. But let's say, for example, it's 99 calories, let's round it off to 100. 100 calories in a Hahn Super Dry. All right, and I want 12 of those. So how we're going to calculate it is 1 super dry equals 99 calories. Let's say 100 to round it off. Let's divide that by 4, all right? Because there's 4 calories in 1 gram of carbohydrates. What I do, based on my macros, is I divide the total calories in that drink. It might be a vodka, it might be a beer, it might be a cocktail. I divide the total calories by 4 to get my carb reading. So I'm saying, based on this equation, that 1 beer equals 25 grams of carbs. So if I'm going to have 12 beers, that's 300 grams of carbohydrates that I have to take from my daily total that's left. All right? So 300 grams of carbs, and I've got a total of 420 left after eating my normal meal. So as you can see, when your food is high, you've got lots of luxuries as far as that's concerned. So to make sure that I get my 12 beers in without excess daily spill, I'll spread out my carbs evenly throughout meals 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I only wanted 3 more meals, it can be 40, 40, and 40. It depends, okay? So that 120 grams of carbs that's remaining is just spread out over those meals if needed. Hey, I could even say that I'm going to drop those out and have an extra couple of beers, but honestly, I mightn't even reach 12, but that's basically the equation that I'm going to work with. Obviously, 70 grams of fat spread out, my protein, etc. too, because I'd prefer to have a few more beers than the food side of things, so I'll keep the food reasonably well chosen rather than sausages, etc., because then obviously my fats are going to go through the absolute roof. Method 1 is great to use for people that are on high food, okay? I'll say that again. Method 1 is great to use for people that are on high food. It is very hard to shift around your macros if you are eating next to nothing already. And a lot of people that we deal with initially metabolically aren't at their true metabolic capacity, and it takes time. This here is a result of pretty much slow reverse dieting over a period of a year to a year and a half. But for those, look, you can use that method if you're on low food, but you're not really going to have much flexibility. And considering we're saying there's about 25 carbs in 1 beer, might only leave you with 2 beers before there's another spill. So this here is basically calculated so that I still meet my calorie requirements over this time. It allows me to have fun and enjoy and make sure that I don't miss out, but I still have my calculations and utilize flexible dieting to my advantage. If you're not counting calories, what you might be able to do is just have your normal meal here, if you know you're eating a high amount of food anyway, and just drop your fats and your carbs out for these meals here and whack in your beers. If you eat excessive calories over and above the food you normally eat, your body is built to adapt and survive. So if it's hit with an excessive amount of calories at any one time through a short particular period, it's going to make sure that it stores it for later, just in case. Or it's more prone for storage. So we want to avoid that at all costs. Now the fun bit is, if your food is low, okay, let's not look at those numbers here. If you're not eating overly much of food on a daily basis, option 2 or method 2 might be the best option for you. Why? Is because you can rob calories from other days. It doesn't mean you can continually do this from Monday to Sunday or not eat today, tomorrow, and then binge on Friday. It's not within reason, or within reason. So method 2, again, I can use this as well. If I did this, obviously you could see the amount of calories I can pop in here. Thursday, you drop your calories by about 20%, okay? And also the day after. So the day before and the day after, you drop your calories by 20%. I must warn you that when you do this, dropping those calories, craving can be at an all-time high, and this is something you've got to battle with. And if it's something that you know that you can fight and make it work for you, that's fine. If it's someone who's got the old rubber elbow and willing to give in to temptation, it's probably not a good idea, okay? But for people who are on low food, what we can do is we can take 20% of calories from the day before, being Thursday, and 20% of calories from the day after on Saturday. And what we do is we pop 20% from Saturday, 20% from Thursday into Friday. All right, guess what happens? It's 40% more calories that you've got to work with, especially for those people who are on low food. So what can happen here? Meal one, you can keep reasonably normal if you do decide to train before or first thing in the morning. And you might be able to space it just 3 meals throughout Australia Day. Just drop your fat and drop your carbohydrates, and you'll have 40% over and above the normal calories that you can use for that day. Why do these methods work is because it avoids spill, or it avoids excessive calorie consumption on these types of days. Hey, you know you're going to have some drinks, you know you're going to have some food. For other people who might just want 6 beers and put more calories into their food, that's fine. But it shows you an idea of what you can do when you are counting macros, being proteins, fats, and carbs, and 2 different variation methods that you can also use. If I knew that it was going to be more than, it was going to be food and drink, okay, I would probably, for myself, even having high food, opt for method 2, because then I've got a lot more calories to bank, and again, it avoids excessive spill. So these 2 methods have both worked very well as far as it, but I'd say the best piece of advice as well, rather than entering your alcohol in MyFitnessPal or a calorie tracker, is find out what the total calories are for that drink, divide it by 4, and take that off your total for your carbohydrates. So in this case, I've got 300 grams of carbs that's going into my beers for the day. So I've got to take that into consideration as well. So unfortunately, it is so difficult because of social outings and food and alcohol being involved, but I'm also a realist in the end of the day. You've got to enjoy things. Yes, they say balance is essential, but everyone's definition of balance is different. And of course, it depends on how quickly you want to reach your goals. If you're doing things like this every weekend, well, don't expect excessive amounts of progress as well. But it's things here that are going to minimize the blowout or the rebound effect that you're going to have from excessive binging or excessive calorie consumption on certain days. So certainly 2 methods to consider. Method 1, meal 1 is as per normal and basically banking it for the rest of the day. Or method 2, robbing 20% of calories from the day before and 20 from the day after, and putting 40% of your calories in on that festivity day as well. So there's so many different variations as far as you can do it. And please look, this is my method that's worked for me and many of our crew that are under our wing as well, because we've got to take these sorts of things into consideration. But it's certainly something to consider also when you have got birthdays and weddings and other events coming up, that you can minimize the amount of damage that you can do on that particular day. So if you've got any questions at all, feel free to comment below, and I hope that gave you a bit of food for thought in relation to how to bank calories for festivities.